Hello everyone, my name is Michelle and welcome to my channel Inner Doors and Sacred Keys. This is the first installment in the Speaking Keys Tarot Study series where we take a deeper dive into the symbology of the Sacred Tarot by examining the 22 keys of the Major Arcana. Yes, you did hear me right. I did call the cards keys, and for good reason. The tarot is far more than a tool for divination. It is actually a textbook for spiritual development for those who are drawn to its particular path of study. Therefore, each card of the Major Arcana is a key that can be used to unlock doors within our consciousness into areas of greater understanding of self and our unified experiences. The keys that I'm using can be found in the description below for those who are interested in knowing more. This particular set of keys is meant to be colored by the student for their individual spiritual enlightenment and development. However, for the purpose of sharing the blessings of this incredible wisdom for the highest good of all, I colored this deck with the pure desire and intention of sharing this knowledge and healing energy with those who desire to receive. So it is, and so we begin. It's only appropriate that we begin with key 0, because key 0 not only starts off the entire deck or the entire system of the tarot, it really does represent the starting point, the basis, the no thing, something which is very difficult for our human minds to be able to comprehend, which is why the tarot system is quite wise. The people who developed the system eons ago, if you want to delve into the history of tarot, I should provide some information with that. I'll see what I can do about getting those resources together. But the people who developed the tarot understood the human mind enough to know that we needed to understand these lofty ideas of like super consciousness or things that are of such spiritual aptitude that we just really can't comprehend, that we need symbology, we need symbols in order to distill this very lofty knowledge. So ingenious what the tarot is. It is known as the Book of Man, as well as it's known as the Fool's Journey. So we have key 0, the Fool. But here's the question, who or what is the Fool? Well, in both instances, the Fool is you and I, as well as the superconsciousness. Because the superconsciousness is having its experience through us as individual co-creators of our own individual realities as well as reality collectively. So, like I mentioned, we will be taking a deep dive into the tarot. But the purpose of this is not only to possibly open you up to a different pathway of understanding the tarot, spiritually, a spiritual pathway, but also, if you're anyone like me, watching tarot readings on YouTube, having this knowledge really enriches the message that I'm getting from these particular readings. So that's why I felt guided to share this information with you. Okay, so let us begin with the figure in the middle. Now, going back to the people, to those wise people who developed the tarot and symbology, instinctively they knew, of course, which only makes sense, that us being human beings, we would automatically resonate with a human figure, which is why superconsciousness is seen as a human figure. However, this human figure is appropriately androgynous, and what it's cloaked in is a lot of higher symbology to help us understand the mode of existence at this particular place within the tarot, which is actually before anything has been actualized. Key 0 represents pure potentiality. The Fool is about to step into over the cliff and into physical form, materialization. But first, he is existing, or I'm sorry, the Fool is existing at the precipice, right at the top of the mountain, or what seems near the top of the mountain. So, but let me go back to the figure in the middle. So the figure is cloaked in, or I should say dressed in 2 garments. The garment underneath is a white garment, brilliantly white, as it's described. And it's cloaked over, or it has over a black cloak that has a lot of rich symbology on it. You'll notice the yellow wheels with the red spokes, which indicates the life breath. So essentially, when looking at the Fool card, esoterically speaking, this speaks of air, of breath, but in particular, the life breath, the single breath, the breath of Creator, the breath of Source, the breath that we all share, because we all share the air, right? So, and it takes air to vivify our physical forms. It's an element we must have in order to experience physical life. So these yellow wheels indicates that life breath. And the red spokes in the middle indicate rhythmic action or fiery activity. So it's these 2 elements together that make like a whirling motion. So I imagine something like when you see raging fires, how you see those tornadoes of fire, of flame. Or like, what do they call that? St. Elmo's fire? No, I've never seen that before on television or in any images myself personally. But when I think of this whirling, fiery, airy motion, I think of this like tornado of like fire. But it's like a cleansing. It's an energy. It's fierce, right? So, and it's not yet ready to be an actualization, which is why we can see that it's contained within circles, right? And also, the 8, of course, indicates power, right? 8 is the number of power. Around these circles, we see green foliage, which represents the vegetable kingdom, as well as the green indicating the color of Venus. So there is a sort of alchemical process going on here, where this fiery, airy element of creation that's bringing vivification to life is being embraced, or it may even be creating, allowing for this love of physical life to begin. So that's really interesting. So we have 10 of these circles, which indicate the 10, what is known as the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life. But we also have an 11th circle right above the heart chakra. So it is yellow, but inside we have a red flame. So this particular symbol represents the energy before physical manifestation. It's pure energy. Whereas the wheels with the spokes is where it's right on, again, that precipice of physical actuality, of materialization. It's interesting how it's right above the heart chakra. And also, if we look right above it, where the white collar is, There is some Hebrew characters that represent the name, the sacred name of God, of Creator, of Source. So again, symbology. Tarot is rich with symbols. Letters are symbols. Words are symbols. Numbers are symbols. Colors are symbols. Even pictures, of course, are symbols. They all represent something else, and that is what we are exploring here. So, as we look over to the shoulder, we see a silver crescent and a golden star. So we have these two elements together represent alchemy, which is another interesting point about tarot. Tarot is filled with alchemical symbology. I think as I go further with my channel, we'll talk a little bit more about what is alchemy. I'm still learning myself. I think I want to really impart that. I am forever a student. I am forever learning. I feel guided at this moment in time to share with you what I've learned so far, as to hope to help you on your journey as well. So yes, so I am not an alchemist. Well, I recant. We are all alchemists, certainly. We are all in the process of turning our spiritual lead into gold, whether we realize it or not, or to whatever degree we realize it or not. However, there are schools of thought of how alchemy is an actual process, an actual physical process. I, however, always felt that it will always be a spiritual process, forever and always. So, and that's what Tarot speaks of this alchemical process of turning one's spiritual lead into gold. And that's what the Tarot has been designed to help us do, if we are so inclined to walk its particular path. Okay, so we see that the lining of the cloak is red, and it even looks like flames. So red, again, is the color of fire and passion and actualization. It is also the color of the human blood, right? So, or I'm sure the blood of many different species, but not everybody, or not every species has yellow or red blood. So we look around the waist of the Fool and we see a belt of knobs. We see 7 of them, but there's actually 12, and this represents time as well as the zodiac. So essentially, this imagery is telling us that superconsciousness wears a cloak. The white cloak is of purity, of understanding the connection to source, but but over that white undergarment is a black cloak. Now the color black represents like shadow, ignorance. We don't see everything. It's not. To understand superconsciousness is also to understand that these polarities of like good or bad, or when we see them in symbology of color as white or black, neither is inferior or superior. Neither really is good or bad. Both are necessary for realization and physical being, for physical life. So superconsciousness, well, how this particular key is teaching us, key 0, the Fool, it's teaching us that superconsciousness, still completely aware of its spiritual reality, of its spiritual being as the source of reality, must dawn, we have a snowplow coming in, must dawn on a cloak of misunderstanding, of not knowing everything, in order to have life. And that's why we have all these symbologies upon that cloak of time, for instance, and also the zodiac. The zodiac are representatives of how our personality is expressed, or how I should say how super consciousness expresses personality through us, through the patterning of our particular character. So we have here, we can see that the stockings that he is wearing, that the Fool is wearing, is of a citrine color, which means that it is a mixture of both green and yellow. Green, again, being the color that represents Venus, fertility, the vegetable kingdom, the natural world. Also, it's incorporated with yellow, which is actually the dominant color of this key, and that represents the mind, in particular mercurial energy, which is the human mind. If you'll notice, the border around the image is of a lighter yellow color. That lighter yellow represents Uranus, which is actually what the Fool represents. This is a very Aquarian key, very Aquarian energy, Uranus energy. It's unpredictable, as you would expect superconsciousness to be. Superconsciousness does what it does whenever it wants to. Time does not exist for superconsciousness. Well, certainly no, not in the way that we understand it. So the stockings are of a citrine color, the mixtures of these two forces. And then we have the yellow shoes, again, mercurial energy, mind energy. It is said that the universe is mental, so this is a very mental key. It takes mental decision making for things to become actualized. Of course, the faculty of our emotions is a necessary component in manifestation as a rule. However, the mental processes in this particular reality incarnation of human being is very forefront. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at what the Fool, well, let's quickly go to the head. He's still wearing something. He's wearing, the Fool is wearing a wreath of leaves, of vegetation, again, the vegetable kingdom, and then the red feather that comes up represents evolution into the animal kingdom, right? So we have the feather representing flight, bird, air again, red, passion, desire, fiery activity. The Fool carries what looks like a staff, but the staff is actually a wand. And I always thought it was very curious how the wand continues to extend out of the frame, out of our view, which really kind of speaks of how the superconsciousness has a very, of course, far domain. Obviously, everything is the superconsciousness's domain. At the end of the wand, or the staff that we see, is a wallet. It is a red wallet. This wallet signifies memory. The Fool only needs to carry its memory with it from former incarnations, and it fits all of that memory within this red wallet. The lock is the all-seeing eye. It's also known as the Eye of Horus. Underneath that eye, we see the eagle. So the eagle represents Scorpio energy. So there's a constant, or this is the reminder that there's a constant transformation process going on at this realm of, I guess we can call it existence, but it's not physical existence still. This is before physical existence. So I think I need to make note that the Fool here is young, forever young. That it's part of the golden hair is, forever youthful. It is forever becoming. There is no time here. The only thing that indicates time is the belt around the waist of the Fool. And of course, again, we talked to that symbology specifically. But here at this point, of where super consciousness is having its moments, there is no time. There is nothing. There is just completely becoming, a constant becoming. So hence, again, the eagle symbol for Scorpio as being the transformer, right? Of really, even though there is no death in this key, there is death symbology, which is very curious, right? Because not only do we have the eagle, but we also have the white rose. Now, the white rose only appears in one other key. Want to take a guess? It's the death key. It's key 13. So the white rose indicates that there's cultivation of, actually, just to be quite honest, of the sexual component. And the white represents pure desire. So the wantingness to transform, sexual energy is, that in itself is a whole other dynamic to talk about, because that sexual energy is the energy that creates all things, everything. It is the creative force. However, as we humanly experience it, we're still like cave people when it comes to that. But we're learning, right? I hope we're learning. Oh my gosh. But this is what this particular symbology is trying to impart to us, is that the purification of this particular sexual desire helps with co-creation, how we can co-create our life. Okay, I'm delving into a deeper subject that I'm not ready to, but I will touch on that later because it's intriguing. It's something we should talk about. It's something to know about. But let me just go back to the white rose. It is about pure desire. It does show up in the death key while it's growing on its bush. But here it is in the hand of the Fool. So, and it's in the left hand, right? So again, in the human anatomy, our heart tends to lean to the left for most. So take that symbology for as you will. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at the companion to the Fool, which is the white dog. So the white dog is always so interesting. Now, in this particular key, it is depicted in its most positive attribute. It is joyful, it is smiling, it is attentive to the Fool, it is ready to follow the Fool right off that cliff. So, but what does this white dog represent? Well, this white dog represents our ego, or just ego, period. Now, when we see it in a spread, like in a reading, whether it be on YouTube or if we're getting a reading from a direct reading from somebody, the Fool, or the white dog does represent our ego. Here, because we're thinking of it in more esoteric terms, this is like just the human ego. So it's like the collective human ego. And it's been purified. Again, the white indicates the pure desire, and wanting to be a supportive companion to super consciousness, instead of having, also, and the dog, it's not a wolf, right? It's part of the canine family, obviously, but this dog has been, what do they call it? I don't want to say cultivated, but has been, let's see here, what is that word? I wrote it down. Adapted, right? It's been adapted by human decision making, of saying, okay, well, we want this particular animal to have these particular attributes, therefore we made it a certain way, right? So that is the cultivation. So the cultivation appears both as the dog and as the white rose. So like human adaptation had to be done. So again, this is a very interesting, Tarot is so rich with symbolism. It's meant, the Major Arcana, the book of Tarot, is meant to help us understand how super consciousness, our consciousness, works symbiotically. And that's what these symbols are showing us. Okay. Okay. So I just want to take a quick look Yes. Okay, so here let's now talk about where the Fool stands. So again, the Fool stands on top of a precipice, ready to take that step off of the cliff and into physical reality, where its first experience will be key one, which is the magician, which we'll speak about next in the next episode. But here we can see that the Fool is looking off into the corner into a vision that we don't see, but the Fool is very confident of. And it's keeping its gaze fixed on that particular vision as it's about to take that step. So it really shows that there's a faith, there's an understanding that walking into the physical realm of life, regardless of the unknowns, there is a purpose to it, there's a reason for it, there's a higher calling because of it. And the Fool keeps its gaze upon that. And so that's part of its lesson to us, right? When we see the Fool in our particular spread, it often denotes that we are about to embark on a new journey, a new adventure, whether, it be like a job or a career move, moving into a new home, meeting new people, having a new relationship, even taking in a new pet, right? Like anything that's new and going to take you into places of unknown, right? That's what the Fool denotes usually in our reading. But of course it also denotes our inexperience, right? Because again, the Fool is forever youthful, forever becoming. So even though at this particular stage esoterically where the Fool stands, it is all-knowing, it is before actualization, but it has not yet known its own individual life experience, which is unique to each of us, right? Which is why life and we are so incredible when we view ourselves through that lens. Okay, so we have the purple mountains in the back, the white peaks as well. Now, in what I've read through the books, if you want to know more again about these keys and where I've sourced this information, you can look in the description below, because in those sources, it talks about how these mountains speak of mathematical equations, mathematical realities. So a little bit over my head. Something worth studying, though, right? Again, we're always students. I forever will be a student. In the corner, we have the white sun. So this again denotes where the Fool stands, meaning that the white sun is the celestial sun. It's the spiritual sun. It is not our physical sun. This is the sun that exists in a dimension higher than our human consciousness at this level. It is forever shining. It is forever imparting a life existence that we derive our life existence from, but cannot consciously comprehend. There is so much to learn about this key, and I certainly do encourage you to do so if you feel that calling. There are so many different spiritual paths, and it's so beautiful because the thing is, and I truly believe, that they do lead us all to the same place. And whichever one we decide upon, it's a beautiful decision that we make between ourselves and Source. So I honor your path. I thank you for listening. The next key we'll be looking at is key 1. And as time goes on, we'll show how some of the keys interact with each other. Certainly as we get into the double digits, like for instance, key 11, 1 plus 1 equals 2. We'll show how key 11 and key 2, which is respectively the Justice key and the High Priestess, how these two keys interact, mirror each other, speak of one another. So yes, definitely keys do speak to one another as well as unlock doors within our consciousness and with our understanding. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so excited that I've decided to break out of my shell and become the fool on my own journey. And thank you for joining me along my path. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.